On Saturday, April 30th, about 100 Londonderry residents gathered at the Old Town Hall to hold their annual town meeting, which had been postponed from its usual time in early March due to COVID concerns. But a recent outbreak which impacted several town officials prompted a move to the town hall's parking lot instead of inside the building. So similar to last year, when town meeting was held at Pingree Park in Londonderry, it became an outdoor event anyway. Fortunately, the weather cooperated, even if it was a little on the cool side and breezy at times, before the 4-hour-long meeting came to a close.
All right, I'd like to call the Londonderry Town Meeting of 2022 to order.
The fate of the Williams Dam in Londonderry was the main item on the warning, but since it was the next to last article, voters got to chew over several other issues first. A big topic of conversation were two articles dealing with law enforcement coverage, which is currently provided for 20 hours a week through the Windham County Sheriff's Department, and signs to deal with traffic control and speeding. Voters were asked if they approved of spending $50,000 to continue the 20-hour-per-week arrangement with the Windham County Sheriff's Office, which town officials said was leveraged through a partnership with the neighboring town of Jamaica, allowing the Sheriff's Department to effectively provide 40 hours of coverage per week. The funding request represented a $5,000 increase from last year, which Sheriff Paul Samtaro said was needed to cover the price increases in fuel and other costs.
Currently, we have a full-service contract in the town of Londonderry. So we handle everything besides speed, anything that comes up as a domestic motor vehicle accident, anything the full-service contract, we would alarms, we would take on. Okay, and as far as being stationary, I know one of the select board members said, we're stationary and we spend all this time. We have moving radar units in our cruisers. So when we patrol, if we see a violation, we'll stop. Okay, we're not sitting in one spot all the time. If there's a problem area, since right down the street here, we'll address that problem area. But like I said, we're a full service contract. Since my stats here, since July, we've stopped approximately 200 cars. Okay, we're new here to the area. I know you didn't have really law enforcement here except for the state police. They didn't spend much time here. We're here 5 days a week, sometimes 6 days a week, patrolling the area.
This article was also linked to a second article asking townspeople if they approved spending another $40,000 for traffic signs and rumble strips to control speeding in town. A lengthy discussion ensued over both of the articles.
Paul Hemlin, question for the captain is, can he tell us from his experience how effective radar signs actually are in reducing speeding?
They are a stationary tool, and they're only at one place at one time. Okay, people know they're there, they might slow down, and if they don't see any law enforcement there, they might speed up. It's all a tool.
Any further discussion on Article 14? Shane, did you? Yes, ma'am. And why don't you guys both come up and we can...
I think a part of this conversation has to do with the relative value of the service for speeding. My question is, of the non-traffic related issues that you mentioned, how much of that would have been done by you anyway if we didn't have a contract with you, since you are covering our county?
So if we don't have the contract with the community, the state police would take first precedence and they would come out. Okay, I know at some point, and probably going back 3 or 4 months, they've been starving for staff, so they only usually have 3 or 4 officers on at a time. So their demand is high. Other than the state police, we're here the majority of the time. I should say we're here 5 to 6 days a week. We also have Governor's Highway Safety Grant.
Both articles were eventually given a thumbs up by the voters. All the other articles on the warning passed except for one, which would have allocated a little over $5,000 to create a new position of administrative assistant for the town's planning commission. This article eventually failed. After a short recess around noon, voters got back to work and dealt with the issue of whether or not to remove or rehabilitate the 140-year-old Williams Dam, which is located on the West River on the other side of Route 11 from the mill pond.
Article 22. it along for it. You can vote for or against it, like any other article. We either pass or it doesn't pass. It's about engineering costs for the removal of the dam. It's not a vote to remove the dam or not remove the dam. It's my understanding, and our town manager and select board can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding that the select board does have within its purview to vote on its own to remove the dam if they want to. However, the mood of the select board, if I'm getting this correct, is that they would prefer the town people to vote on that. Is that a fair assessment? So I believe that we're going to be revisiting this. Is that also a fair assessment? Or I don't want to put words into anybody's mouths.
If no decision is made today, yes, we will have to revisit this.
So the answer was, if no decision is made today, then yes, we will have to revisit this.
During a special Select Board informational meeting on the dam held on April 20th, an engineering study was presented which looked at the various costs and options. But several who attended that meeting felt they hadn't had enough time to fully consider all the consequences of removing the dam, which is something of a landmark in North Londonderry. That same sentiment, that a change of this magnitude needed more time for thinking it over, was repeated again at the town meeting on April 30th.
I feel that it is inappropriate for there to be a vote at this time. There is much to be discussed about the report and the options, and I'm a little unsure of how we might interpret this vote.
It's like putting the wagon in front of the horse. You want to vote on, do we spend that money on that? Before we know actually, it's gonna be removed. So I'm missing something here.
And so I feel like I just want to say today that to everyone that once we make this decision, it's done. You cannot replace the dam. So once you remove it, it's gone. So I really feel that we need to take time and due diligence to make this decision, and it should not be rushed. There are options, and we should look into each of those. I think the study was great, but did it have limitations? Absolutely. All studies do. I think the study, it didn't have a risk analysis. We should be looking at the options and what risks there are, meaning flooding downtown or flooding upstream or what that might be. The study didn't do a risk analysis. It did not study the correlation of the current condition of the dam and its relationship to the past recorded state inspections or any other past repairs made. The study misrepresented the dry hydrant's ability, and it also misrepresented funding available for rehab. So I just think that it's really important that we do our due diligence and really look into all our options.
The reason we voted for removal was, one, right now, that could be fully paid for with no taxpayer dollars. Money's there now. It might be able to be done in the future, but it'll be a lot harder in the future. The dam is a big liability to the town. The town owns the dam. If the dam was to fail, we are responsible for any damage downstream. And if you dredge that mill pond, that liability just is about 10-fold, maybe 100-fold times bigger for the town, because there's more water there. If it fails, it's going to be more damage. So by removing the dam, we are removing all maintenance and liability to the town in the future.
In the end, voters opted to pass over the article and effectively table it for now. But the issue isn't going away, as Select Board Chairman Tom Cavanaugh told us after the town meeting had adjourned.
What happens next when it comes to the dam is we will keep the dam on the old business section of the agenda, and we will continue to talk about it until we have a decision. The fact is we need to make a decision. The state of Vermont's going to pass new dam safety rules next year,
And once that's done, eventually there will be a mandate for us to do something if we have not done it already.
For the GNAT-TV News Project, I'm Andrew McKeever.